You ever feel that? That low-grade hum of anxiety in the background? The feeling that our whole economic system is just stretched a little too thin? Well, I'm here to tell you it is not just in your head. But what if all this pressure, this anxiety we're all feeling, what if it isn't just random chaos? What if it's actually the result of a hidden blueprint, an invisible operating system that's running our world? Okay, let's really dive into this. This just captures that feeling perfectly, doesn't it? The sense that the entire system is under this immense, totally unsustainable pressure. You just know that something has to give.
And right here, this is the central question for this whole explainer. What if we've been running on faulty code this entire time? Let's try to reframe this whole thing, not as a bunch of random crises, but as the predictable result of a flawed design, a hidden blueprint that's been quietly shaping, well, everything.
So let's pull back the curtain on this default operating system, the one that's causing all this pressure. Because, to fix a problem, you first have to really understand the logic that created it. And that logic is the scarcity blueprint. The design flaw starts right here, hidden in plain sight, in the most basic assumption of economics. We are all taught that the entire field is about managing limited resources. That one word, limited, that's like the first line of code in the scarcity blueprint. It frames our entire world as a fixed pie. And, well, when the pie is fixed, what kind of logic does that lead to?
Well, that single starting assumption creates two completely different ways of seeing reality. The scarcity blueprint, over on the left, it leads to that fixed pie view. It becomes a zero-sum game, totally driven by the fear of not having enough, which naturally results in things like hoarding and competition. But the alternative, the abundance mindset, it sees a field of seeds. It's a positive-sum game of co-creation, driven by trust, where the whole point isn't to divide, but to plant and multiply.
So what's the end result of a world running on this scarcity blueprint? Well, it's a number so big our brains can barely even wrap around it. We're talking over $100 trillion. And look, this isn't just government debt. No, this is the whole shebang. Federal, corporate, and household debt all rolled into one massive pile. It's a truly staggering symptom of a system that's built on a constant, spiraling need for more and more and more.
And this is the inevitable outcome of that fixed pie logic. The wealth doesn't get spread around, it concentrates. It's designed to. As you can see, a shocking 93% of all assets, we're talking stocks, real estate, everything, are owned by just the top 10%. So the system isn't just creating debt, it's creating predictable and absolutely extreme inequality. All right, so a system that generates this much debt and this much inequality obviously can't run forever. History shows us there's a pattern here, a cycle. And when you run the scarcity blueprint for long enough, you eventually always reach a breaking point, an inevitable reset. And listen, this is not a new thing. The famous investor Ray Dalio, he identified these long-term debt cycles that play out over 50 to 75 years, and the pattern is just crystal clear. You had pre-revolutionary France and Weimar Germany. They faced chaotic, violent resets. Then, in 2008, we chose targeted bailouts, which, let's be honest, only deepened public resentment. The lesson from history is clear. Systems built on ever-increasing debt eventually break. The only real question is, how is ours going to break? And this right here is the crucial point. We are at the peak of the cycle, and this quote just nails the choice we face. A reset is coming, one way or another. The only question is whether it's going to be planned, orderly, and designed to keep society stable, or if it's going to be chaotic, painful, and destructive. Okay, so that was the bad news. But what if there's another way? A different blueprint that's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years, one that offers a radically different logic for how a society can actually work? Let's explore the abundance blueprint. The core of this blueprint is this ancient piece of social technology called the Jubilee. Now, forget any religious baggage for a moment and just look at it as an economic tool. It was literally a society-wide reset button, a built-in pressure release valve designed to do one specific thing: stop inequality from spiraling completely out of control.
And this wasn't just some vague, feel-good idea. No, it had very specific, very concrete rules. Every half-century, boom, all debts were just gone. All ancestral land went back to its original family, which prevented a few powerful families from owning everything forever, and all indentured servants were freed. It was a total social and economic reboot, right from the ground up. Now let's look at this logic in action in one of the most famous stories ever told. If we just set aside the supernatural part for a second, we can see a clear and repeatable process, 4 distinct actions. He takes the small offering,
He blesses it publicly as a signal, he breaks it for efficient distribution, and then he gives it to his team to hand out.
Okay, and this is the real aha moment. If you go back to the original Greek text, guess what? The word multiply, it's just not there. The story never says he magically created more food out of thin air. Instead, the text describes a process, a series of actions that resulted in abundance. So the miracle wasn't some kind of supernatural creation, it was about creating social trust. That four-step process, taking, blessing, breaking, giving, it triggered this incredible cascade of generosity. It unlocked the food that was already there, just hidden away in people's bags, because they were afraid.
So what does an ancient principle of debt forgiveness and a story about sharing bread have to do with today? Well, everything. This isn't just about economics or history. The abundance blueprint is a logic for designing systems, whether they're social, technological, or even personal. Let's explore what it would actually mean to apply it to build a truly living world.
Think about our most advanced AI. It's a perfect modern example of the scarcity blueprint's logic. It's a passive energy hog. It consumes massive resources, and it's all based on a rigid, zero-sum logic. But what if we built it using the abundance blueprint instead? We could create a living system that actually fuses energy and information, operating as a rhythmic, adaptive ecosystem.
And here's a vision for what that could actually look like. An AI designed with an artificial breath, a rhythm of high-energy learning and then low-energy consolidation. An artificial heart that synchronizes the whole system, and, crucially, an artificial metabolism that recycles its own waste energy. It wouldn't just consume, it would become a self-sustaining living system.
Now, this blueprint doesn't just apply to AI. It applies to us. We can run it in our own lives by redefining responsibility. See, under the scarcity blueprint, responsibility feels like a heavy burden, a debt you have to carry. But in the abundance blueprint, it's responsibility, your internal power to choose your response. It's about creating that little bit of space between a stimulus and your reaction. It's not a debt you owe, it's a capacity you can grow.
So when you put it all together, the debt cycles, the ancient resets, the living AI, our own psychology, it all boils down to one thing. We're standing at a crossroads, and we're faced with a fundamental choice about which blueprint we're going to run.
This ancient verse from Deuteronomy, it just frames our modern dilemma perfectly. The choice between the scarcity blueprint and the abundance blueprint isn't new at all. It's a timeless existential decision. One path leads to hoarding, fear, and collapse. That's the death and evil part. The other leads to generosity, trust, and flourishing. That's life and good.
So, is this our reality? A world governed by the scarcity blueprint, where everything is a fixed pie? A zero-sum game of just fighting over a finite number of slices? A world where for me to win, you have to lose?
Or is this our reality? A world that's understood through the abundance blueprint. A world that isn't a pie to be divided, but a field of infinite seeds just waiting to be planted, where value isn't fixed but can be created and multiplied for everyone. And that leaves us with this final, empowering question. And you can apply this to any problem, in your life, your community, or the world. Stop asking how to divide the slices. Instead, ask this: what is the seed here? What is the one thing that, if it were multiplied, would make fighting over the pieces totally unnecessary? Finding that answer, that is how we choose life.